saying is that being a king takes a lot of responsibility. You got to think about politics and economics, and if you're in the African jungle, ticks. It's just a lot, you know? And if I was next in line to be a king, I'd certainly be fine waiting. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. We are moving on with the Disney era rankings after some time away, and with none other than arguably the best era of Disney animation, the Disney Renaissance. This is a highly controversial ranking, as every other ranking for this era is, as basically every film has a huge, almost cult-like following from different fan bases, so please remember to be civil as you share your rankings down in the comments below. I really would like to see as many of your rankings as possible. Starting us at the bottom with number 10, I have The Rescuers Down Under. Now, going into my rewatch for these films, this is the only one I had not seen before, and I was actually quite surprised with this one. I wasn't a huge fan of The Rescuers, but I know that these films have a massive fan base, so I went into this one with higher hopes, and honestly, I thought it was a decent sequel. The voice work here is incredible, the art style is breathtaking at times, and it's got a little bit of everything with some charming jokes, some romance between Bernard and Miss Bianca, and some engaging action sequences, but in the end, it's held down by an overly simple story. And in truth, this one just doesn't feel like it belongs within this era. I mean, it is a sequel for a Dark Age film. It also makes some odd choices, like some animals being able to talk and others being mute. Like, you'd think the Queen of Eagles would be able to talk, you know? Now, McLeach as the villain made good first impressions on me, but the further the story went on, the more it became apparent that he's just a one-dimensional villain who is overly addicted to hunting. He's scary, he's cunning, he's strong, but a poacher with a single drive to catch a bird is a hard thing to have driving a strong story. For me, this is a tame, safe adventure flick that still retains some charm and fun, but just pales in comparison to every other film within this era. Moving on to number 9, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one, but I have The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This film has quite possibly one of the biggest and most vocal followings within this era, and I can certainly see why. It is arguably Disney's darkest film, and it's awesome to see them tackle things within here like Gothic Paris, Catholicism, and gypsies, as well as themes of prejudice, life and death, and the difference between a hero and a monster. But it can also get a bit too dark at times, especially compared to other films within the Renaissance. I think its story and characters have some of the best writing within this era, with Frollo being a terrifying villain and one of the strangest love triangles that I've ever seen on screen. And the climactic confrontation at the end is easily one of the most memorable for me. However, the humor within this film, as well as the music, is what I find to be controversial for this film. The music is very traditional, almost opera-like. It's sophisticated and extremely well crafted, but it's hard for me to understand or sing along to, which in all fairness is part of the fun of the Renaissance. And as much as I want to love the gargoyles as support for Quasimodo and to help lighten the film a bit, I find them more distracting and like they don't quite belong here in this film. The balance of dark to light is very hard to get right with this source material, which makes this a very niche film for me, and one that I just simply have to be in the mood for to watch, in contrast with the others on this list. Next up at number 8, I have Pocahontas. Now, I can understand that this film comes with some baggage of historical inaccuracies, while both understating and overemphasizing negatively charged statements on culture. However, at the same time, the movie feels quite tame and like Disney was trying to make a more lighthearted film that skirts around these controversial topics. The story itself has some plot holes here and there, such as Pocahontas picking up English insanely quickly as opposed to a more carefully executed Tarzan.
Pocahontas.
What? What did you say?
My name is Pocahontas.
The entire film revolves around Pocahontas learning to follow her own path, which becomes this Romeo and Juliet relationship with a colonizer who has the most boring name of all time. My apologies to all the John Smiths out there, it's not your fault, blame your parents. And yet, after the confrontation between the settlers and the Powhatan tribe, with Pocahontas serving as the bridge and John taking a bullet for the chief, the movie ends with John leaving and Pocahontas deciding that her path is to stay with her tribe. It feels like all of this amounted to really nothing in the end, and so the film is completely dependent on its ability to make you care for the characters. And I would say that it achieves this, but it doesn't go that much beyond it for me. As for the music, I really like Just Around the Riverbend and Color of the Wind. I hadn't seen this movie in ages, and so getting to hear these songs again really warmed my heart. Even the Virginia Company surprised me as a fun, catchy song. And lastly, Governor Ratcliffe for the villain was a mediocre villain at best, but he serves his role well enough to push John and Pocahontas together and have the tension there throughout the film. In the end, the inconsequential story and its humor relying solely on adorable Meeko are what keep this film back for me. I really enjoyed it, just not as much as the ones above it. Which brings us to number 7, The Little Mermaid. Being the one that kicked off the Disney Renaissance, this one holds a special place in many hearts, and if this is even towards the top of your list, I would completely understand. Its natural use of comedy within its dialogue and the music throughout the film, both the original score and the musical numbers, keep you engaged from start to finish. Ursula is great as the villain. She's scary and cunning and mysterious as you don't fully know what she's planning. And while I wish she had more time to be fleshed out, as the climax does feel a bit rushed because of this, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy what she brought to the screen. I also love how the movie feels loose and free, not completely breaking away from a few random scenes thrown in there, a staple of the Silver and Bronze Ages, such as Sebastian escaping an enthusiastic chef.
Come out, you little pipsqueak, and fight like a man!
The film serves as a great segue from this type of storytelling to what the Renaissance provides. Ariel's story of love and curiosity makes for some great scenes as well as lessons for kids, and while I think the supporting characters could have been a tad more interesting along her journey, I still had a blast revisiting this classic. But moving on to number 6, I have Hercules. And now we're starting to get more into the films that I watched religiously as a kid. Hercules was one I just could not turn away from. With one of the best stories in the Renaissance, Hercules offers so much, from high stakes and fast comedy to intense battles and charming romance. There is so much going on here, and that in part is one of its biggest flaws, its inability to perfectly juggle and balance the many storylines coming through. However, its magnetic journey into what makes a hero, coupled with dynamic characters like James Woods' Hades and Danny DeVito's Phil, as well as some catchy musical numbers, make this movie so gosh darn fun that the 90 minutes seem to just fly by. And I know, the CGI Hydra, I get it, I understand, it's jarring, I completely agree, and in an attempt to defend this Renaissance gem, I wish I could say that it is to make the monster feel more unworldly. But then you have the Titans, who are just, well...
Guys, Olympus would be that way.
But kicking off my top 5 is Mulan. My top 5 were the absolute hardest to get right, as I think each and every one deserves the number 1 spot for some reason or other, and Mulan was especially difficult to place because it is just so well-rounded. A story revolving around gender norms doesn't sound like a winner on paper, but its execution and portrayal of Mulan are very fitting and carefully crafted, that in the end it delivers a strong message that's great for young boys and girls alike. The humor in this film is a standout for me because, as opposed to others like Aladdin or The Lion King, who depend so heavily on one or two characters, I feel like Mulan's humor comes from just about every character, which makes it feel more natural and unexpected, which in turn makes it even funnier. But of course, I can't disagree that Mushu has the best one-liners.
You see those Huns? They popped out of the snow! Like daisies!
Are we in this together or not?
Let's go kick some honey buns!
I also can't move on before addressing the outstanding score within this film. The first 10 minutes alone have two of the greatest songs in the era, with Reflection and Honor to Us All, and as the movie continues, we get another couple of fan favorites such as I'll Make a Man Out of You and A Girl Worth Fighting For. Mulan is another one of these films that I watched over and over again as a kid. It's nostalgic and meaningful to me, and it still holds up on rewatches today. However, it could have been even better, having a one-dimensional villain and not as much emotion as one would expect with this type of story. That said, I still think this is a solid classic from Disney. But coming in at number 4 is Tarzan. Filled with dark themes and scary action scenes, this emotional roller coaster is perfectly engaging from start to finish. It has those slice of life moments with Tarzan growing up and making new friends, but it always brings it back to his arc of finding his place and his purpose. Tarzan teaches us to be true to ourselves and fight for whatever we believe in, and at the same time, it touches on lessons of discrimination and judging people with innate differences in a balanced way that's not too heavy-handed but allows the themes to push the story further at the same time. And of course, this being a Renaissance film, it comes with an awesome soundtrack and a story of love. I will say that as awesome and wholesome as Phil Collins' songs are here, it is kind of odd to have some random guy singing the entire soundtrack in the background. Tarzan marks the end of the Renaissance era for this reason, as the characters aren't doing the singing here, and the musical format is coming to an end, at least for now. So the soundtrack is odd here, but it also helps to make the film a little more unique within the Renaissance, and at the end of the day, it still manages to work. Before diving into my top 3, don't forget to share your ranking down in the comments below. I really want to see where you guys line up on these films. This is a very controversial era, but that only makes it more fun. I'll also be putting out companion videos on TikTok where I'll be ranking the soundtracks of each film as well as the villains for the Renaissance. So if those sound interesting to you, do be sure to click the link in the description and give me a follow over there. It's something I'm trying to do more of so that the discussion can continue, especially around heated topics like this one. But kicking off my top 3, I have Beauty and the Beast. Another very well-rounded film, Beauty and the Beast has it all: light and dark themes of love and horror, an emotional story filled with strong characters, and musical numbers that will never leave your memory. Every side character here feels purposeful within their scenes and adds to the story and the emotion at play. I particularly love the mirrored arcs of the Beast and Gaston, as it pushes the envelope of the theme even further that the Hunchback touches on: what truly makes a monster? The Beast goes through a transformation of progress, while Gaston digresses, greedily chasing the one thing he can have and hurting everyone in his way to grasp it. The one thing I feel this movie could have scored higher on is the humor aspect, but at the end of the day, this one is just so technically strong that I thought it deserved a spot in my top 3. Moving on to my runner-up, Aladdin takes the number 2 spot. I don't think this is a surprise for most people. I know some might have this a bit lower, but this is such a beloved classic from Disney, and it was my personal favorite growing up. While Aladdin's motives feel a bit basic to me here, his journey from start to finish is exciting and believable, excluding the magic of course, as he makes mistakes along the way, allowing his humanity to remain front and center in the midst of a whimsical story and setting. The songs here are unforgettable. Friend Like Me, Whole New World, Prince Ali are all personal favorites of mine, and even Arabian Nights will get stuck in my head from time to time. Jafar as the villain is strong, scary, and crafty, and his devious ploys being successful only add to that level of horror that he's able to provide. But of course, the true king of this film is the genie and Robin Williams' performance. The voice acting and animation to match it here are incredible and are largely what makes this film so much fun and so rewatchable.
In case of emergency, the exits are here, anywhere. Keep your hands and arms inside the carpet, please.
Every character fits their role and does their job well. The story is exciting and engaging, and the lighthearted notes never fail to put a smile on my face. But taking my number 1 spot, the true king of the Disney Renaissance is none other than The Lion King. Originally, I had Aladdin as my number 1 going into my rewatch. It was the one I watched the most out of any of these growing up, and I was never all that big of a fan of The Lion King. However, upon rewatch and after over a decade, The Lion King really hit me hard and secured my number 1 spot. Its tragic story of treachery and exile, filled with themes of responsibility and feeling lost, makes this film feel like an epic. The character arc for Simba of growing strong through adversity and finding yourself is my new favorite amongst the Renaissance films, and is certainly one that I and everyone can relate to. And if you can't yet, don't worry, you will. The songs are great here as well, containing some traditional African elements and helping to tell the story of Simba's downfall and rebirth. They're catchy, and while not my favorite of the era, still very big hitters, especially Hakuna Matata. Now, while the humor is a bit downplayed here, relying mostly on Timon and Pumbaa, its villain certainly makes up for it with the strongest villain of the era, and one of the strongest Disney villains of all time, Scar. He's not the strongest physically, but he has the sharpest of wits and knows how to utilize his resources. His betrayal against Mufasa hits you in the gut and makes you fear him and his impending reign on the throne. All of this and more makes for a fantastic film, and to put the icing on the cake, the animation style and the amount of effort put into this film makes it even easier to appreciate this work of art. But that's just my list, and I look forward to seeing yours down in the comments below. What's your favorite film of the Disney Renaissance, and what's your least favorite? Don't forget to follow me on TikTok for those companion videos I mentioned earlier. I'll be ranking the soundtracks as well as the villains within this era, and I would love to hear your thoughts on those rankings as well. But as for now, that's it for me. If you liked the video, go ahead and let the YouTube algorithm know. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.